literally struck gold twice. First in the 1890s, then again when casinos turned their mountain into a money printer. Today, they can't afford to keep the streetlights on. And they're not alone. You think the Colorado real estate crisis is about billionaires losing money in Aspen? That's the distraction. The real collapse is happening in towns you've never heard of, where homes are selling for $30,000 and still sitting for a year, where entire neighborhoods are being seized for unpaid taxes, where the local government is so broke they're debating whether to fund the fire department or the water system, but not both. We're talking about a prison town that built its entire economy on incarceration. And now that the prisons are closing, there's literally nothing left. An industrial city where you can buy a house for less than a used car, but the insurance companies won't touch it because the crime is so bad. A border town so desperate for residents, they're offering free land, and people are still saying no. This isn't about luxury condos or ski chalets. This is about entire communities on life support with no one willing to pay the hospital bill. Towns that are too broke to save themselves and too far gone for anyone else to care. You're about to see which town has over 1,200 properties in active tax foreclosure. That's 1 in every 5 homes. And the number 1 spot? It's a place that was built on literal gold, survived for 130 years, and is now collapsing under the weight of its own history. The buildings are so historic they can't be torn down, but the town is so broke it can't maintain them. It's a financial death trap wrapped in Victorian architecture. If you want to see the real Colorado collapse, the one affecting actual people, not hedge fund managers, hit that like button and subscribe. Comment below, have you seen entire towns just give up where you live? This is the road trip no one wants to take, but someone has to document it. We're counting down 6 Colorado towns in total free fall. Each one represents a different economic death spiral, and each one is worse than the last. Let's go. Town number 6, Canyon City, the prison town economic trap. We're starting our journey south, about 2 hours from Denver, pulling into Canyon City. You've probably never heard of it unless you work in corrections, or you've driven past on your way to the Royal Gorge. This town has 13 prisons. 13. They call it the corrections capital of the world, and for decades, that was a badge of pride. Not anymore. Canyon City built its entire economy on one thing, locking people up, and now that industry is dying, the town is dying with it. This is what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket, and that basket is a for-profit prison system that's collapsing. The crisis is simple and brutal. Colorado's prison population has been declining for over a decade. The state closed the 752-bed Arrowhead Correctional Center in 2019. Then came the pandemic, and incarceration rates dropped even further. Private prison contracts are ending. Federal facilities are downsizing. The Colorado Department of Corrections recently announced plans to close at least 2 more facilities in Fremont County by 2026. Each prison closure means hundreds of jobs gone, and in Canyon City, those weren't just any jobs, they were the tax base. The Fremont County Assessor's Office reported that correctional facilities account for nearly 40% of the county's total property tax revenue. When those facilities shut down, the money disappears overnight. The Canyon City School District just announced a $4.2 million budget shortfall. They're consolidating elementary schools, cutting teaching positions. The local hospital, St. Thomas More, is operating at a loss and has eliminated entire departments. The police department is down to skeleton staffing because they can't compete with salaries in Colorado Springs an hour north. Here's the data that should terrify anyone who owns property here. Zillow shows the median home price in Canyon City is $285,000, which sounds reasonable until you realize it's dropped 8% in the last year alone. But the real horror is in the days on market, 145 days. That's nearly 5 months to sell a house in a town where the median income is $48,000. The Fremont County Treasurer's Office has over 380 properties currently in tax lien status. That's double what it was 3 years ago. And these aren't abandoned shacks. These are middle-class family homes whose owners just walked away because there's no equity and no hope. Redfin data shows that nearly 60% of all listings in Canyon City have had at least one price reduction. Sellers are desperate. One local realtor told us off the record that buyers are negotiating 15 to 20% below below asking price and still walking away because the appraisals won't support the deals. But here's the nightmare. The town can't afford to maintain itself. The city council just voted to defer maintenance on over 30 miles of residential streets. The parks department has been cut by 40%. The library is now open 4 days a week instead of 6, and the Canyon City Fire Department is operating with a third of the staffing it had in 2015. This is a town where the corrections officers are leaving faster than the inmates. The people who built their lives around this industry, bought homes, raised families, retired here, are now trapped in a place with no economic future and no way out. When your entire identity is prison town and the prisons start closing, what's left? Canyon City is about to find out, and if you think a single industry town collapsing is bad, wait until you see what happens when an entire city tries to reinvent itself and fails catastrophically. That's next. Town number 5. Pueblo, the industrial ghost's decline. From Canyon City, we drive east on Highway 50, then south toward Colorado's forgotten industrial heart, Pueblo. This isn't a small town, it's a real city, over 110,000 people. It has a state university, a minor league baseball team, a riverwalk that costs $32 million to revitalize downtown. On paper, Pueblo did everything right to reinvent itself after the steel industry collapsed. On paper doesn't matter when reality is a nightmare. Pueblo is what happens when a city tries to escape its past and fails so completely that the failure becomes its identity. This is the diversified economy that wasn't diversified enough. The reinvention story that turned into a cautionary tale. The crisis here is a slow motion implosion. Pueblo's story starts like every Rust Belt city. The Colorado Fuel and Iron Steel Works closed in the 1980s, taking 10,000 jobs with it. The city spent 40 years trying to rebuild. They attracted Avesta's wind turbine plant. It closed. They built that riverwalk to spark tourism. It's mostly empty. They promoted Colorado State University Pueblo as an economic engine. Enrollment has dropped 25% in the last decade. Now Pueblo is stuck in what economists call a negative equity spiral. Property values are so low that homeowners can't afford to maintain their houses. Unmaintained houses drag down the entire neighborhood. Crime increases, more people leave, values drop further. Repeat until entire zip codes are functionally abandoned. The Pueblo County Assessor just released devastating numbers. The median home price is $243,000, but here's the catch. Over 1,200 properties are currently in active tax foreclosure. That's 1 in every 5 residential properties either delinquent or seized by the county. The county literally cannot sell these homes even at auction. Here's what the data reveals. Zillow shows the average days on market in Pueblo is 87 days, but that number is hiding a darker truth. Homes under $150,000, the ones actual Pueblo residents can afford, are sitting for 200 plus days. We found listings that have been active for over a year with multiple price reductions and still no offers. Crime is the cancer eating the city alive. FBI data shows Pueblo has the second highest violent crime rate in Colorado, nearly triple the state average. Property crime is off the charts. Insurance companies are either refusing to write homeowner policies or charging premiums that exceed monthly mortgage payments in some neighborhoods. Redfin data confirms that 44% of all active listings have had price cuts, some multiple times. We found homes listed at $89,000 that started at $135,000 6 months ago. These aren't investors dumping properties. These are families trying desperately to escape. The Pueblo School District is hemorrhaging students. Enrollment is down 18% since 2015. They've closed 5 elementary schools and are considering consolidating 2 high schools. When schools close, families with options leave. When families leave, the tax base shrinks. When the tax base shrinks, services get cut. The death spiral accelerates. But the real horror is the infrastructure collapse. The city's water system is over 100 years old and failing. The Pueblo Board of Water Works estimates it needs $400 million in upgrades over the next decade. The city's general fund can't cover it. They're applying for federal grants that may never come. Meanwhile, entire neighborhoods have streets so potholed they're barely drivable. The city has a backlog of over 8,000 unfilled potholes. Parks are overgrown. Public buildings are crumbling. Pueblo isn't dying. It's already dead. The body just hasn't stopped moving yet. And if an industrial city of 110,000 can't save itself, what chance does a remote border town of 8,000 have? None. You'll see. Town number 4, Trinidad, the border town abandonment. We're heading south on I-25 all the way to the New Mexico border, pulling into Trinidad. If Pueblo is a slow death, Trinidad is a town actively being abandoned in real time. Population 8,000 and falling fast. This was once a thriving coal mining hub, a place where fortunes were made and Victorian mansions were built to prove it. Those mansions are still here. Most of them are empty. Trinidad is stunningly beautiful in that tragic haunted way. The historic downtown looks like a movie set. Brick buildings from the 1880s, ornate architecture, a main street that could be in a Western film, but walk down that street and you'll see. For lease signs in every third window, boarded up storefronts, businesses that closed during COVID and never reopened. This is the aesthetic of abandonment. The crisis here is an exodus with no end in sight. Trinidad's population peaked at over 15,000 in the 1980s. Today it's barely holding at 8,000, and the US Census Bureau projects it will drop below 6,500 by 2030. That's a 60% population loss in 50 years. This isn't a market correction. This is a town dissolving. The coal mines that built Trinidad shut down decades ago. The last major employer, a regional hospital, downsized by 40% and eliminated its maternity ward. There is nowhere to give birth in Trinidad anymore. Young families figured that out and left. Trinidad High School, which once had over 800 students, now has 310. The school district just voted to consolidate all 3 elementary schools into one building. When we spoke to a local administrator off the record, they said the real question isn't whether to consolidate, it's whether the district will exist in 10 years. Here's what the real estate data shows. The median home price in Trinidad is $167,000 according to Zillow, but that number is meaningless because almost nothing sells. Days on market averages 203 days, nearly 7 months, but we found listings that have been active for over 500 days. Some have been relisted multiple times over multiple years. The Los Animas County Treasurer reports that over 15% of all residential properties are either delinquent on taxes or in active foreclosure. The county is holding tax lien auctions where properties don't get a single bid, not one. We found a 3-bedroom Victorian home listed for $65,000. It's been on the market for 287 days with 2 price reductions. The listing photos show original hardwood floors, 12-foot ceilings, and ornate woodwork. In any functional market, this would sell in a week. In Trinidad, no one wants it even at that price. Why? Because Trinidad has no economy. The median household income is $38,000. The poverty rate is 24%. Nearly 1 in 4 residents. There are no jobs unless you work for the school district, the city government, or one of the few remaining gas stations on E25. The town is literally offering free land to attract new residents. The Trinidad Los Animas County Economic Development Corporation launched a program giving away city-owned lots to anyone willing to build. The requirements: prove you have financing and commit to building within 18 months. So far, they've given away 12 lots. Exactly 0 homes have been built. People won't move to Trinidad even when the land is free. The city's general fund is in crisis. They've cut the police department, reduced hours at the public library, and stopped maintaining parks. The historic downtown, Trinidad's only real asset, is crumbling because there's no money for preservation. Trinidad isn't a town anymore. It's a museum to the idea of a town, slowly being reclaimed by the high desert. And if geographic isolation can kill a border town, wait until you see what it does to a valley town 2 hours from anywhere. The collapse gets worse. Town number 3, Alamosa, the San Luis Valley isolation crisis. We're leaving the border and driving west into one of the most remote and beautiful places in Colorado, the San Luis Valley. This is high desert, 7,500 feet of elevation surrounded by mountains on all sides. And right in the center of this vast isolated valley sits Alamosa, population 9,500, home to Adams State University, the regional hub for healthcare, education, and commerce. And it's collapsing under the weight of its own isolation. Alamosa is what happens when a town is too far from everything and everyone. It's 2 hours to Pueblo, 2.5 hours to Colorado Springs, 3 hours to Denver. When you're that remote, you're not part of the state's economy. You're on your own. And Alamosa is learning that being on your own means dying alone. The crisis here is a full systems failure. Let's start with healthcare. The San Luis Valley Health System, which runs the regional hospital, is in a staffing catastrophe. They cannot recruit doctors, nurses, or specialists Because no one wants to live in Alamosa. The hospital's OB/GYN department has one doctor serving the entire valley. 1. If you're pregnant in Alamosa, you're driving 2 hours to deliver your baby, or hoping that one doctor is available. The emergency room is chronically understaffed. Wait times average over 4 hours. The hospital recently announced it's cutting services and laying off administrative staff because it's operating at a $6 million annual loss. This is a healthcare desert in the making. Now let's talk about education. Adams State University was supposed to be Alamosa's economic lifeline. It's the largest employer in town, but enrollment has collapsed by 35% since 2015. The university is facing a budget crisis so severe that the Colorado Department of Higher Education placed it on fiscal watch. They've eliminated entire degree programs, laid off faculty, and are considering merging departments just to survive. When your anchor institution is failing, the town goes with it. Here's the real estate nightmare. Zillow data shows the median home price in Alamosa is $248,000, but the average days on market is 178 days, nearly 6 months. Redfin confirms that over 50% of active listings have had price reductions, many of them multiple cuts over several months. But the real story is in the rentals. The university's collapse means student housing is sitting empty. Entire apartment complexes built during the enrollment boom of the early 2000s now have 40 to 50% vacancy rates. Landlords are offering 2 months free rent just to get tenants, and they're still losing money. The Alamosa County assessor reports that property tax delinquency has increased by 28% in the last 2 years. The county is seizing homes and can't auction them off because there are literally no buyers. We found a 4-bedroom home listed for $135,000 that's been on the market for over a year. The seller has dropped the price 3 times. Still no offers, because who's buying? The university isn't hiring. The hospital is laying people off, and the median household income in Alamosa is $41,000. Barely enough to survive, let alone buy a house. The poverty trap is complete. US Census data shows that 28% of Alamosa's population lives below the poverty line. The school district reports that over 60% of students qualify for free or reduced lunch. The city's general fund is so strained they've stopped repaving roads and are cutting library hours. Young people are leaving as fast as they can. Anyone with a degree from Adams State who can find work elsewhere does. The population is aging and shrinking simultaneously. Alamosa is isolated, impoverished, and dying. There is no cavalry coming over those mountains. The valley is too far, too poor, and too forgotten. But if isolation can kill a town, imagine what happens when a boom-bust cycle leaves behind infrastructure for a population that no longer exists. That's next, and it's brutal. Round number 2, Rifle, the energy boom-bust graveyard. We're driving west on I-70, deep into Colorado's western slope, pulling into Rifle. If you've ever driven from Denver to Grand Junction, you've passed it. Maybe stopped for gas, maybe didn't even notice it. But 15 years ago, Rifle was the promised land. The oil and gas boom turned this sleepy ranching town into a boom town almost overnight. They built for 30,000 people. Today, barely 10,000 leave here, and the infrastructure built for a city that never materialized is bankrupting the town. Rifle is the textbook definition of boom-bust devastation. When energy prices soared in the late 2000s and early 2000s, the natural gas fields in Garfield County exploded. Companies like Encana, Noble Energy, and Antero Resources moved in. Thousands of workers flooded the area. Hotels were fully booked for years. Housing couldn't be built fast enough, so developers went insane. They built massive subdivisions on the outskirts of town, new schools, expanded the water and sewer systems, widened roads, added stoplights. The town council approved everything because the tax revenue was pouring in, and the future looked infinite. Then the boom ended. The crisis here is stranded infrastructure. When energy prices collapsed and fracking regulations tightened, the workers left as fast as they came. The hotels emptied. The new subdivisions became ghost neighborhoods, and Rifle was left holding the bill for infrastructure designed to serve a population that no longer exists. The Garfield County assessor's data is devastating. Over 800 residential properties in Rifle are either vacant or in foreclosure. Entire cul-de-sacs with million-dollar views sit empty, weeds growing through the driveways, for sale signs sun-faded and forgotten. Zillow shows the median home price at $425,000, which sounds high until you realize these are brand new builds from 2012 to 2015 that were listed at $650,000 to $750,000. Sellers have taken 30 to 40% losses and still can't move them. Days on market averages 167 days, but homes in the outer subdivisions, the ones built during the peak of the boom, sit for over a year. We found one listing that's been active for 623 days with 4 price reductions. It started at $695,000. It's now listed at $449,000. Still no offers. Here's why no one is buying. The energy jobs are gone and they're not coming back. Colorado's shift toward renewable energy means the natural gas fields that built Rifle are being phased out. The unemployment rate in Garfield County is nearly double the state average. The few jobs that exist are in retail or hospitality, paying $35,000 to $40,000 a year. No one making $35,000 can afford a $425,000 house. But here's the nightmare the town council doesn't want to talk about. The infrastructure is failing and there's no money to fix it. The water treatment plant was expanded to handle 25,000 residents. It's serving 10,000. That means the operational costs per household are 2.5 times higher than they should be. The city's water and sewer rates have increased by 60% in the last 5 years just to keep the system from collapsing. Residents are paying infrastructure costs for a ghost population. The town just announced it's deferring $18 million in road maintenance because the general fund can't cover it. The Parks Department has been cut by half. The community center operates 3 days a week instead of 7. Rifle built a city for a future that never came, and now it's trapped maintaining infrastructure it can't afford for people who don't exist. This is what happens when you bet everything on a single industry and lose. The people still living here are underwater on mortgages for homes no one wants in a town with no jobs and rising utility costs. They can't sell, they can't leave. They're financially hostage to a boom that's been over for a decade. And if you think that's the worst Colorado can offer, you haven't seen the ultimate irony yet. A town built on gold that's now broke. That's next. And it's unbelievable. Town number 1. Victor/Cripple Creek, the casino ghost towns. We're climbing up into the mountains southwest of Colorado Springs, past 9,000 feet of elevation, into a place that defies logic. This is Victor and Cripple Creek, 2 towns so intertwined they're basically one dying organism. And the irony here is so thick you could mine it. These towns literally struck gold. The Cripple Creek gold rush of the 1890s produced over $500 million in gold. That's nearly $20 billion in today's money. Victor and Cripple Creek became 2 of the wealthiest towns in America. Millionaires were made overnight. Opera houses, grand hotels, and Victorian mansions lined these streets. Then the gold ran out. The towns died. End of story, right? Wrong. In 1991, Colorado legalized limited stakes gambling, and Cripple Creek became one of 3 towns allowed to have casinos. The gold rush returned, this time in the form of slot machines and blackjack tables. For 30 years, casino revenue kept these towns alive. Tax money poured in. The historic buildings were preserved. It was a miracle reinvention. Now the casinos are dying, and this time, there's no plan C. The crisis here is the ultimate death trap. Cripple Creek and Victor are collapsing under a perfect storm of impossible problems. First, casino revenue has cratered. The Colorado Gaming Commission reports that Cripple Creek's casino revenue is down 40% from its 2019 peak. The pandemic accelerated the decline, but the real issue is competition. Why drive 2 hours into the mountains to gamble when you can do it online or at one of the new casinos in Blackhawk or Central City that are closer to Denver? Second, the entire area sits on top of abandoned gold mines. Literally, there are over 500 documented mine shafts under these towns, many of them unmapped. Sinkholes open up randomly, homes collapse into the ground, and because of the EPA's designation of the area as a Superfund site due to toxic mine tailings, environmental cleanup costs are in the hundreds of millions. The towns can't afford it. The state won't pay for it. The mines are a ticking time bomb. Third, and this is the killer, historic preservation laws. Because Cripple Creek and Victor are on the National Register of Historic Places, property owners can't demolish buildings, even if they're structurally unsound. Renovation and maintenance must meet strict historic standards, which costs 3 to 5 times more than normal construction. So you have buildings from the 1890s that are literally falling apart. Owners who can't afford to fix them properly quickly, and laws that prevent them from tearing them down. It's a financial prison. Here's the data that proves the collapse. Zillow shows the median home price in Cripple Creek is $385,000, but days on market averages 221 days, over 7 months. In Victor, it's even worse, 267 days on market. These towns have a combined population of under 1,200 people, and there are currently 89 active listings. That's one home for sale for every 13 residents. The Teller County Treasurer reports that over 18% of all properties in Cripple Creek and Victor are either tax delinquent or in foreclosure. The county has seized dozens of historic buildings and cannot sell them, not even at auction, because who wants to buy a 130-year-old building that costs $400,000 to renovate and sits on top of a potential sinkhole? Redfin data shows that 62% of listings have had price cuts. We found a historic Victorian home listed for $199,000 that's been on the market for over 800 days. 800 days. It started at $350,000. No one will touch it. The casinos are closing one by one. In the last 3 years, 4 casinos have shut down permanently. The remaining ones are operating at half capacity with skeleton staffing. The casino tax revenue that funded the town's budget has evaporated. The Cripple Creek City Council just approved a budget with a $3.2 million shortfall for a town of 1,100 people. They're cutting everything: police, fire, road maintenance. The street lights, the ones we mentioned at the beginning, are being turned off in sections of town to save on electricity costs. This is a town built on gold, saved by gambling, and now dying because neither one lasts forever. Victor and Cripple Creek are financial black holes wrapped in Victorian architecture. Beautiful, historic, and utterly unsavable. Our road trip is over. From the prison town watching its economy walk out in handcuffs to the casino towns built on gold that can't afford to keep the lights on. From Pueblo's industrial corpse to Trinidad's slow-motion abandonment. From Alamosa's isolated poverty spiral to Rifle's stranded infrastructure graveyard, the story is the same. These towns aren't in a downturn, they're in a death spiral, and the math is brutal. When your tax base collapses, you can't maintain services. When you can't maintain services, people leave. When people leave, property values crater. When property values crater, the tax base collapses further. It's a feedback loop with only one destination: total municipal failure. This is the Colorado no one talks about. While real estate investors obsess over Aspen and Vail, while podcasters analyze Denver's condo market, these 6 towns are quietly erasing themselves from the map. And here's what should terrify you: they represent every economic model America has relied on for the last century. Prison jobs, gone. Manufacturing, dead. Coal mining, finished. Energy booms, over. Higher education, collapsing. Casino revenue, evaporating. What's left? The people trapped in these towns are living in a financial nightmare. They own homes they can't sell in communities with no future. They're paying property taxes to fund services that no longer exist. They're watching their schools close, their hospitals cut departments, their downtown businesses shutter one by one, and no one is coming to save them. The federal government isn't bailing out Canyon City. The state of Colorado isn't rescuing Pueblo. Private investors aren't swooping into Trinidad. These towns are too small, too poor, too far gone. The cost to save them exceeds any possible return on investment. Canyon City, 380 properties in tax foreclosure. Pueblo, 1,200. Trinidad, can't give away free land. Alamosa, anchor institution failing. Rifle, infrastructure for a ghost population. Victor and Cripple Creek, historic buildings they can't afford to maintain or demolish. Over 2,000 properties seized by counties that can't sell them. Thousands more abandoned or underwater. Tens of thousands of people financially trapped. This isn't a market correction, it's municipal death, and it's spreading. If this opened your eyes to the collapse no one's covering, hit like, subscribe, and comment which town shocked you most. These 6 are just the beginning. Thanks for watching.